You are 10 feet underground. Rome, 91 AD. A stone slab grinds into place above the ladder, 500 pounds of volcanic tufa sealing the only exit. Your hands find a wooden cot, a clay jug, a crust of bread. A single oil lamp throws your shadow against walls of packed earth. You are Cornelia, Vestalis Maxima, Rome's highest sacred priestess. For 30 years you kept the eternal flame alive. 48 hours of oil. Cornelia had entered the Vestal priesthood at age 7. She remembered the morning of the Captio ceremony, her mother's hands releasing hers at the temple door, the Pontifex Maximus gripping her wrist and speaking the words that transferred her legal identity from her father's household to the goddess. She was no longer her father's daughter. She belonged to Vesta, to the flame. She had tended it through 30 winters, through 2 emperors, through revolt and disaster, and the slow rot of Domitian's reign. She had never once let it die. Rome repaid her with a clay jug and a locked door. The charge was incestum, violation of the 30-year chastity vow every Vestal swore at induction. No statute of limitations, no burden of proof, no appeal. Emperor Domitian had seized the title of Pontifex Maximus in 85 AD, fusing 3 offices into one man. Prosecutor, judge, and sacred authority combined. He condemned Cornelia without a single witness present. No evidence was produced. No evidence was required. She learned her sentence from a messenger and was not permitted to speak in her own defense because the law did not classify her trial as a proceeding that required one. Pliny the Younger stood in the Roman Forum that morning and watched Rome's holiest woman dragged through the streets by lictors, screaming that her sacred hearth had burned clean for 3 decades. The crowd parted. No senator stepped forward. Merchants weighed grain. A cartwheel cracked against paving stones near the Macellum. Life continued with the indifference of a city that had done this before. 600 years of it. Below the campus Sceleratus, she has already counted the oil in the lamp twice. 12 hours sealed. The air has thickened. Not dramatically, not yet, but enough that Cornelia notices it at the back of her throat on every inhale. A faint heaviness, the kind a person might dismiss as nerves if they did not know exactly what it meant. She knows what it means. Cornelia knows fire the way a surgeon knows a pulse. She spent 30 years reading the sacred flame of Vesta's temple for divine omens. A steady burn meant favour. A gutter meant wrath. The flame before her now is steady. It does not know it is consuming the air she needs to breathe, but she has not looked away from it since the stone sealed. It is the only thing in this chamber still moving. The campus Sceleratus, the accursed field, sits outside the Colline Gate on Rome's northern edge. Romans buried condemned Vestals here for 6 centuries before Cornelia descended its ladder. Plutarch recorded the ritual precisely. The accused bound and gagged inside a covered litter, so no cry could reach the street, carried through avenues emptied by imperial decree. Citizens shuttered their windows. Looking was forbidden. At the burial site, the Pontifex Maximus raised his arms in prayer, while lictors lowered the ladder. The condemned descended. The entrance was heaped over until no scene remained. Rome did not watch its Vestals die. It simply stopped seeing them. But Cornelia's burial broke the ritual in one detail no other ancient account preserves. As she descended, her white ceremonial stola caught on a rung. The executioner reached to free it. She recoiled so violently she nearly fell. Even in those final seconds, condemned, bound, seconds from burial, her body remained legally sacrosanct under pontifical law. A profane man's touch would have polluted her flesh and invalidated the entire ritual. The legal fiction required her sacred. The state could only bury her alive because she was still holy. Rome needed her holy to kill her. If that prerequisite had been what protected the other women this field had already swallowed. How many had the law taken quietly, under cover of divine will, without a single name preserved in any archive? 30 hours remain. The heaviness at the back of Cornelia's throat has settled into something permanent. Her first headache arrived around the 10th hour, a dull pressure behind her eyes, unresponsive to stillness. Because stillness is no longer enough, she has eaten half the bread. The water is below the halfway mark. She rations both with the discipline of a woman who spent 3 decades maintaining sacred inventory. Consecrated oil measured to the drop, ceremonial grain weighed precisely, nothing wasted, nothing assumed. She applies that same discipline now to the act of staying alive. Slow breaths, minimal movement. Every action costs air she cannot replace. 8 years before her burial, in 83 AD, Domitian condemned 3 Vestals in a single purge, the Oculata sisters and a priestess named Varanilla. The charges were identical, incestum. The evidence publicly presented was identical. None. The Oculata sisters were permitted to choose their own deaths. Varonilla's accused lover was acquitted entirely. 2 women dead, 1 man walking free, the arithmetic of Roman religious enforcement at its most deliberate. Cassius Dio recorded the pattern without sentiment. Domitian prosecuted Vestals when he needed to project moral authority to a Senate grown dangerous in its quiet. In 83 AD, he was consolidating power after the Saturninus revolt. In 91 AD, Cornelia's condemnation was not religious enforcement. It was a political performance staged with a living woman's body and sealed beneath 40 cubic feet of Roman earth. The provisions placed in the chamber, the lamp, the bread, the water, the oil, were not mercy. Each item existed to establish one fact in the pontifical record. The state did not kill her. The legal term was depositio, a placing down, a setting aside, as though a woman were an amphora, as though 30 years of sacred service were inventory to be rotated out of the stores and replaced before the next season. The lamp was Exhibit A, the bread was Exhibit B, the water was Exhibit C. A legal defence assembled in clay and linen, sealed underground, where no advocate could challenge it. Cornelia had watched the provisions being arranged before she descended. She had looked at the lamp for a long time. The size of the dish, the depth of the oil, the thickness of the wick. She had spent 30 years calculating how much fuel a flame needed to last through a temple night watch. She understood exactly what that lamp held. She understood exactly what it meant that Rome had chosen that size and not a larger one. She descended the ladder anyway. The lictors were behind her. The law was above her. There was nowhere else in the Roman world left to go. 24 hours sealed. The headache has spread. No longer pressure behind her eyes, but a weight across her entire skull, steady and immovable. Her throat is dry despite the water. Her lips have cracked at the corners. The air is not thin enough yet to cause confusion, but thin enough that every breath returns slightly less than it costs. She sits on the cot and does not waste energy on anger. That hour has passed. What remains is something quieter and more dangerous. The clear-eyed focus of a woman who has assessed every possibility and found no exit she had not already considered and discarded. Pontifical record filed that morning states the facts without elaboration. 1 Vestalis Maxima, lowered into a prepared chamber furnished with a couch, a lighted lamp, bread, water, milk and oil. No weapon used, no blood drawn, no hand raised against her. College of Pontiffs ratified the finding before the forum opened for business. The Senate did not object. The entry took less space on the scroll than a grain shipment authorization from Alexandria. Clean hands, sealed door, filed paperwork. 24 hours remain. The flame has shortened by a third. 18 hours of breathable air beneath the campus Sceleratus. Above ground, Rome is collecting the rest of the verdict. Sella, the man accused of violating Cornelia's chastity, was not sealed underground. No lamp, no bread, no legal fiction extended in his direction. Sella was stripped in the Comitium, the open assembly space at the forum's heart, and beaten to death with rods by the Pontifex Maximus's own lictors. He died in full daylight, in public, screaming. Pliny recorded that his blood ran across the Comitium's paving stones while Rome watched from 3 sides. Same crime, same verdict, same emperor's word. 2 bodies, 2 entirely different deaths, one invisible and airless, one loud and hemorrhagic and witnessed by hundreds. The holiness that shielded Cornelia from a blade was the precise same holiness that licensed the state to bury her beyond the reach of any sound she made. Sacred law did not protect her, it dictated the method. Pliny recorded what he saw and left the weight of it to the reader. 18 hours underground. Cornelia cannot hear the screaming above her. She has started talking to the lamp, not prayers. She had been a priestess long enough to know the difference between faith and negotiation, and what she needed now was neither. Something quieter, the way a person speaks aloud when the only available voice is their own. She talked about the temple. Sensual tuum, the eternal colour on winter mornings when cold air moved through the colonnade, and the fire leaned sideways for a moment before straightening. The junior priestess she had trained 15 years ago, a girl of 8, terrified on her first night watch, whom Cornelia had sat beside until dawn without saying anything particularly useful. Just staying, being present beside the fire so the girl understood that the darkness outside the temple was not something the flame could not outlast. She does not say what she understands about the darkness in this chamber. Some conclusions do not need to be spoken. Then, in the shrinking light, a thought she has held at arm's length since the stone sealed finally arrives. What if she had made herself smaller? Not confessed. She had nothing to confess and would not have confessed it regardless. but smaller, less visible, less authoritative. Rome had not buried her for violating her vow. It had buried her for being the most powerful religious figure in the city who was not Domitian. Her 30 years of flawless service had not protected her. They had made her necessary to remove. Pliny's account and Dio's records support this reading. The trial produced no evidence because evidence was never the point. She sits with that for a long time in the failing light. 12 hours remain. The flame has begun to pulse. The blue edge at the lamp's base tells Cornelia what she already knows. The oil is nearly gone. She has read 1,000 flames. This one is telling her the same thing it told her at the top of the ladder, that Rome had calculated the oil with precision, not generosity, precision. She could extinguish it now, save what it consumes, buy hours of air in exchange for total darkness. She sits with that choice and does not move. Above her on the Palatine Hill, the junior priestess, she trained, is on the morning watch, tending the eternal flame the way Cornelia taught her, treating it as something that deserves to finish what it started. Cornelia had taught her never to let it go out under any circumstance. She does not blow it out. 6 hours of breathable air beneath the campus Sceleratus. Above the stone slab, the forum is open. Merchants move through the Macellum. Senators debate grain allocations from Alexandria. A magistrate signs 3 land transfer documents before noon. On the Palatine Hill, the sacred flame of Vesta burns in its temple, tended now by 5 priestesses instead of 6. The woman Cornelia trained 15 years ago is on the morning watch. She tends the flame carefully, without interruption. She does not know what to do with the silence where her teacher used to stand. The pontifical record that morning contains no entry for Cornelia. Not a death notice, not a status update. Position of Vestalis Maxima is listed as vacant pending appointment. Administrative language for a woman who has been underground for 42 hours, in total darkness, with 6 hours of air remaining in a chamber the size of a grave. The lamp went dark before dawn. The flame pulsed twice. Cornelia watched it, contracted to a point of blue light smaller than a thumbnail, and was gone. She had kept the eternal flame of Vesta alive through 2 emperors, through the eruption of Vesuvius, through revolt and purge, and the long rot of one man's paranoia. Rome gave her 40 hours of olive oil in a clay dish and called it sufficient. The darkness is absolute, no gradations, no outlines. Her open eyes and closed eyes are identical. She keeps them open anyway. She catalogues what is real by touch: the cot's wooden frame, the wool blanket across her knees, the empty water jug tipped on its side by her foot. She does this methodically, the way she catalogued sacred inventory every dawn for 30 years, confirming what remains, confirming it remains. The dizziness arrived with the darkness, not spinning, not collapse, but a gentle unreliability at the edges of thought, like a flame in a draft that gutters without going out. Each breath is shorter now, not from panic. From the air itself, from carbon dioxide accumulating in 60 cubic feet of sealed space, from a boy it has since you were 17. From a body doing everything correctly in a chamber designed to make everything correct insufficient. She thinks of the morning her mother released her hand at the temple door. Her mother had walked away without looking back. Since you were cool, Cornelia had understood at 7 what that cost. That turning around would have made leaving impossible. She had watched until the crowd closed over her mother's back, then faced the temple and the flame that would define every remaining hour of her life. She had loved that life, not despite its constraints, but within them. The ritual, the responsibility, the daily act of keeping something sacred alive. Domitian took her freedom. He took her name from the record. He did not reach what was underneath that, 2 hours of air. Then one, the silence becomes the executioner the law always intended it to be. No blade, no blood, no recorded moment of death. Just the air thinning and the darkness, and Cornelia keeping her eyes open until she cannot. No Roman source records the moment of Cornelia's death. Not Pliny, who watched her procession and recorded the detail of her stola catching on the ladder. Not Cassius Dio, who documented Domitian's Vestal prosecutions across 2 decades. Not Plutarch, who described the burial chamber's provisions with the precision of a man who wanted posterity to understand exactly what Rome had placed beside a condemned woman and called sufficient. The pontifical archive contains no obituary, no death certificate, no acknowledgement that a body lies beneath the field near the Colline Gate. As far as Rome's legal record is concerned, Cornelia was never executed. She was placed down. The rest was between her and the gods. And the gods, it appears, kept no records either. 5 years later, on September 18, 96 AD, Emperor Domitian was stabbed to death in his own bedchamber by members of his household. He was 44 years old. He died the way Cornelia had not, loudly, bloodily, on a marble floor, with witnesses present to record the hour and the wound count, and every name of every man who held a blade. The Senate passed a damnatio memoriae before his body was cold. His name chiselled from public inscriptions, his statutes pulled down, his verdicts opened for review. Cornelia's case was not among them. Her chamber was not unsealed. Her name was not restored. The reversal of Domitian's legacy, comprehensive, documented, inscribed across the empire, stopped at the stone slab of the campus Sceleratus, and went no further. To unseal that chamber would have required Rome to say what 6 centuries of pontifical law had been built specifically to prevent anyone from saying that depositio was execution, that sacred procedure was a killing method, and that Rome itself, not just one emperor, had maintained it, used it, and filed the paperwork afterward without a single recorded death. Nerva's Rome was not prepared to say that, so it said nothing, appointed the successor. Moved on, the sacred flame burned for another 3 centuries. Emperor Theodosius extinguished it permanently in 394 AD when he banned pagan worship across the empire. The Temple of Vesta stands today as a partial ruin in the Roman Forum. Tourists photograph it in the afternoon light. The guides mention the eternal flame. They do not mention the field outside the Colline Gate. They do not mention the women in it. Rome protected its eternal flame for 1,000 years. It extinguished the woman who had never once let it die, and then forgot her name so completely that the only reason we know she existed at all is because Pliny the Younger happened to be standing in the Forum on the morning they dragged her through it and thought what he witnessed was worth writing down. He was right. Rome buried this for 2,000 years, and Cornelia wasn't the only woman a state erased by making her disappearance look like divine will.